Domestic violence. Domestic violence affects many people worldwide, and it causes so much damage. Not only physical damage, but also self-esteem, emotionally, mentally, and it continues to affect the person being abused for many years down the road. It affects future relationships, grades in school, performance at work, social life, and friendships. It affects the children if any are around to witness the abuse. What are the 5 types of domestic violence? 1. Physical abuse. However, it's important to remember that even physical abuse is not often obvious. 2. Sexual abuse. Sexual abuse includes the use of pressure or force to influence a victim to engage in undesirable sexual behavior. 3. Economic abuse. 4. Verbal abuse. 5. Spiritual abuse. Each form of domestic abuse affects us in different ways, but should equally be acknowledged. Each person that is being abused will react differently to the violence and at times may even deny the abuse, although the one around the person sees it and knows it is going on. It takes a lot of courage to speak up and speak out on abuse that is happening. Statistics about domestic violence. Women. Every 9 seconds in the U.S., a woman is assaulted or beaten. Around the world, at least 1 in every 3 women has been beaten, coerced into sex, or otherwise abused during her lifetime. Most often, the abuser is a member of her own family. Domestic violence is the leading cause of injury to women, more than car accidents, muggings, and rapes combined. Studies suggest that up to 10 million children witness some form of domestic violence annually. Nearly 1 in 5 teenage girls who have been in a relationship said a boyfriend threatened violence or self-harm if presented with a breakup. Every day in the U.S., more than 3 women are murdered by their husbands or boyfriends. 92% of women surveyed listed reducing domestic violence and sexual assault as their top concern. Domestic violence victims lose nearly 8 million days of paid work per year in the U.S. alone. That is the equivalent of 32,000 full-time jobs. Based on reports from 10 countries, between 55% and 95% of women who have had physically abused by their partners had never contacted non-governmental organizations, shelters, or the police for help. The cost of intimate partner violence in the U.S. alone exceeds $5.8 billion per year, $4.1 billion for direct medical health care services, while productivity losses account for nearly $1.8 billion. Men who as children witnessed their parents' domestic violence were twice as likely to abuse their own wives than sons of non-violent partners. Statistics for domestic violence. Men. The Office of National Statistics figures show every year that 1 in 3 victims of domestic abuse are male, equating to 757,000 men. 1 in 6 to 7 men and 1 in 4 women will be the victim of a domestic abuse in their lifetime. Of domestic abuse crimes recorded by the police, 26 were committed against men. This equates to 155,000 offenses per year. Only 4.4% of victims of domestic abuse being supported by local domestic services are men, according to Safe Lives data. This highlights how few men are being supported for local domestic abuse services. Over the pandemic period, the charity saw an increase of calls to its helpline by 1/4 and visits to its website by 75%. 61% of the men who call the Mankind Initiative helpline have never spoken to anyone before about the abuse they are suffering. and 64% would not have called if the helpline was not anonymous. There are 39 organizations with 238 spaces in refuges or safe houses for men, with only 58 of those places that are dedicated for men. Half of male victims fail to tell anyone they are a victim of domestic abuse and are 2.5 times less likely to tell anyone than female victims are. 11% of male victims have considered taking their life due to partner abuse. The charity has seen an increase in calls regarding suicide ideation over the pandemic period. Over the past 5 years, on average, 12 men per year had been killed by a partner or ex-partner. Statistics for domestic violence, LGBT. More than 1 in 10 LGBT people, 11%, have faced domestic abuse from a partner in the last year. These statistics are very high in rating. They show us that domestic violence is a serious issue. These statistics show us that we need to find a way to prevent further violence from occurring. We need to teach our children that they have a voice at an early age, so if the day comes that they find themselves in a domestic situation, they will speak up and speak out in hopes of making it better. We need to let our friends know that they can count on us if the day comes that they turn to us to tell us that they are in a bad situation. We need to find a way to make this issue come to the light so that the victims that are currently trapped in a relationship of violence have the strength to come forward, get out, and become a survivor of what was, but is now no longer. Each state has a hotline for domestic abuse. Most towns have a crisis center that can be contacted, as well as a nearby shelter for those who want to leave the situation. These shelters help victims become strong again, giving them access to safety while helping them find a job, a house, and connecting them with many other services. If you are in a domestic situation, please reach out to someone you trust. Reach out to the services available. Press charges on the abuser. Take your life back and move forward with your head held high. If you are not sure where to turn, I have a group set up for those who are or have been part of a domestic violence. It is located on Facebook and the name is Together We Survive. I made this group in hopes that it will create a trusted community where no one has to be worried about being victim shamed or blamed, and to give a place where everyone can tell their stories. It is for both those who are currently in a bad situation and those who have gotten out.